When a poor waitress violently slaps a drink out of an 8-year-old boy's hand, the room turns on her, calling her crazy, desperate, and dangerous. But she isn't acting on impulse. She's acting on terror. What no one knows yet is that the billionaire's perfect fiancé has just laced the boy's juice with a deadly allergen. As security drags the waitress away and the truth hides behind smiles and power, one decision will expose a crime so shocking it will change every life in the room. When the security footage finally plays, silence becomes louder than screams, and justice begins. Hey family, welcome to Real Life Heart Stories. Please subscribe and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you so much for the support. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. The slap came out of nowhere. A thin arm flashed across the white table, and the plastic cup flew, skidding across marble as orange juice splashed like a burst balloon. "And oh!" the waitress screamed, her voice tearing through the orchestra music, her body already moving as she stepped between the 8-year-old boy and the drink. The boy froze, mouth open, straw inches from his lips. Forks clattered, chairs scraped. A woman gasped so loudly it echoed. "Don't drink that!" the waitress cried again, shaking, eyes wild with fear. The room, golden lights, crystal glasses, quiet wealth, went dead silent. A security guard took one step forward. "What do you think you're doing?" the billionaire snapped, rising so fast his chair fell back. His suit jacket swung open as he pointed at the waitress. "Have you lost your mind?" The boy blinked, confused, looking from his father to the woman in black and white uniform who looked like she might faint. "Daddy?" he whispered. The waitress swallowed hard, palms raised. "I saved him," she said, breathless. "I swear I saved him." Laughter rippled from another table. "Crazy," someone muttered. "Attention seeker." The manager rushed over, hands clasped, already bowing. "Sir, I'm so sorry." She's new. The waitress shook her head violently. "He's allergic," she said, pointing at the boy with trembling fingers. "Severely allergic." The billionaire stiffened. "Allergic to what?" The waitress pointed at the spilled juice. "Almond." There was almond extract in it. The boy's eyes widened. "Daddy," he said softly, "you said almonds make my throat close." The room buzzed again, louder now. The waitress's voice cracked. "I saw it. I saw her pour something into the cup." The billionaire's fiancée stood slowly, smoothing her dress, her smile practiced and calm. "This is absurd," she said, her tone sweet as honey. "I ordered orange juice. That's all." She knelt beside the boy, dabbing juice off his shoe. "You're okay, sweetheart. Some people just want attention." The waitress shook her head harder. "No," she said, tears welling. She took out a small bottle. Clear. No label. The fiancé's eyes flickered for a heartbeat before she laughed. "Are you accusing me?" she asked, standing now, voice sharpening. "Because that's defamatory." Security grabbed the waitress's arm. "Enough," the guard said. "You're coming with us." The waitress didn't resist. She just turned back to the table, desperation flooding her face. "Please," she begged. "Don't let him drink anything." She touched. The manager whispered urgently to the guards. "Take her out the back." Guests leaned in, phones half raised. "She assaulted a child," someone said. "Lock her up." As they pulled her away, she shouted over her shoulder, voice raw, "Check the cameras. Please. I'm begging you." The billionaire's jaw tightened. His son clutched his hand. "Daddy?" the boy whispered. She looked scared. The fiancée reached for the billionaire's arm. "This is humiliating," she said softly. "Let's leave." He hesitated, eyes drifting toward the hallway where the waitress had disappeared, her scream still ringing in his ears. Something felt wrong. Something felt deadly wrong. He raised his hand slowly. "Wait," he said. The room fell silent again. "My son has a life-threatening allergy," he continued, voice low and controlled. He turned to the manager. I want the security footage. Now. The fiancé's smile cracked just enough to show fear. If that moment made your heart stop, like the video and subscribe right now, because what the cameras reveal next will change everything. The back hallway smelled like bleach and panic. The waitress's shoes scraped the floor as the guards dragged her past stacked trays and swinging kitchen doors. Please, she kept saying, over and over, her voice cracking like a broken record. Please, you don't understand. One of the guards scoffed. Yeah, we've heard it all before. A cook peeked out, shaking his head. She finally snapped, he muttered. The waitress pressed her back against the wall when they stopped, sliding down until she sat on the cold tiles. Her chest burned as she struggled to breathe. I saw it, she whispered, clutching her apron. She hates that child. The guard laughed sharply. Sure she does. And you're the hero. He leaned closer. You assaulted a billionaire's kid. Do you know what that means? Tears streamed down the waitress's face. I don't care about money, she said. I care that he lives. The other guard shook his head. You poor people always want drama. The words cut deeper than the grip on her arm. Out in the dining room, the manager wrung his hands, bowing repeatedly. Sir, again, we are deeply sorry for this disruption. The billionaire stood rigid, one hand resting protectively on his son's shoulder. My child could have died, he said flatly. Disruption is not the word. Guests whispered behind napkins and wine glasses. She wanted attention, probably wanted a payout. The fiancée folded her arms, shaking her head in disappointment. I warned you about hiring unstable staff, she said softly to the manager. Then she turned to the billionaire, lowering her voice. Let's not traumatize our son further. Let's leave. The boy looked up at his father. Daddy, he said quietly, my throat feels funny when I smell almonds. The billionaire stiffened. He crouched down. Do you feel sick now? The boy shook his head. No, but she was scared. The waitress. The fiancé's jaw tightened. Sweetheart, she scared you. That's not okay. The boy frowned, confused. She didn't scare me, he said. She scared for me. The billionaire's eyes flicked up sharply. The room felt suddenly smaller. In the hallway, the waitress heard raised voices from the dining room. She pushed herself up, staggering toward the door. Please, she shouted. I lost my brother this way. The guards shoved her back. That's enough, one snapped. Save it for the police. Her knees buckled. He was 7, she sobbed. They said it was an accident. I watched him choke. Her hands shook violently. I can't watch it happen again. The guard hesitated for half a second, then hardened his face. Not my problem. Out front, the billionaire straightened slowly. No, he said suddenly, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. The room quieted. He turned to the manager. We're not leaving. The fiancée spun toward him. What? He met her eyes. We're staying. I want answers. Her voice sharpened. You're choosing a waitress's story over me? He didn't respond immediately. He looked at his son, who was gripping his sleeve tightly. If there's even a 1% chance she's telling the truth, the billionaire said calmly, I won't ignore it. The manager swallowed. Sir, the footage will be checked. The billionaire interrupted. Now. Phones lowered. Forks stopped moving. The fiancé's composure slipped, just for a breath. You're embarrassing us, she hissed. He leaned closer, voice cold. If my son is in danger, embarrassment means nothing. In the hallway, the waitress pressed her ear to the door, hope flickering weakly in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, someone was finally listening. Comment below. Would you risk everything to tell the truth when no one believes you? The private security office felt too small for the weight hanging in the air. The manager's hands trembled as he tapped at the keyboard, pulling up the camera feed while sweat darkened the collar of his shirt. The billionaire stood behind him, arms crossed, jaw locked so tight it ached. His fiancée paced slowly, heels clicking sharply against the floor, every sound slicing through the silence. Two security guards stood near the door, tense and alert. In the corner, the waitress sat on a low stool, wrists shaking in her lap, eyes red and swollen. "Please," she whispered again, her voice barely audible. "Just watch." The screen flickered to life, showing the elegant dining room from above. There was the table, the boy laughing, the waitress approaching with the tray. "Play it from the start," the billionaire said. The manager nodded quickly. The footage rolled. At first, everything looked normal. The fiancée leaned back with a scoff. "You see?" she said. "Nothing." Then the billionaire lifted a hand. Pause. The image froze. The fiancée's purse sat open on the chair beside her. "Zoom in," he said quietly. The manager obeyed. The waitress sucked in a sharp breath. "That's it," she whispered. "Right there." The image sharpened just enough to show a small glass vial tucked inside the purse, catching the light. The fiancée laughed nervously. "That proves nothing. I carry perfume." "Play," the billionaire said. The video resumed. A moment passed. Then the fiancée's hand slipped into her purse while the waiter spoke to another guest. She pulled out the vial quickly, her body angled to block the view of the table. The room went dead silent. The waitress covered her mouth with both hands as tears spilled freely. "Oh God!" she sobbed. The vial tilted. A clear liquid poured into the boy's juice. The billionaire felt the blood drain from his face. "Pause," he said, his voice hollow. The manager froze the frame. The liquid hovered mid-pour. "Enhance," the billionaire added. The manager zoomed again. The vial had no label. The fiancée stopped pacing. "This is insane," she said, backing away. "That could be anything." The billionaire turned slowly, his eyes dark and unreadable. "You knew his allergy," he said quietly. "You memorized it for doctors. You reminded restaurants." She shook her head violently. "I would never hurt him." He pressed play again. The footage showed the waitress noticing the vial, her face changing instantly. It showed her slapping the cup away, stepping in front of the boy without hesitation. The fiancée screamed suddenly, the sound sharp and raw. "I just wanted him sick," she cried, collapsing to her knees. "Just enough so you'd send him away for a while." The guards moved instantly, grabbing her arms as she sobbed uncontrollably. "You always chose him," she screamed at the billionaire. "I wanted my own child." The billionaire felt something inside him crack completely. He stared at her like she was a stranger. "You could have killed him," he said flatly. The waitress cried openly now, her body shaking. "He would have died in minutes," she whispered. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance as the manager stepped back. Horror etched across his face. The truth had finally come out, and there was no undoing it. The hospital room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made every beep and breath feel loud. The boy sat on the edge of the bed, swinging his legs slowly, a cartoon playing on mute on the wall-mounted screen. His small fingers twisted the edge of the blanket again and again. "Daddy?" he asked softly, not looking up. "Did I do something wrong?" The billionaire's chest tightened painfully. He crossed the room in 2 long steps and knelt in front of his son, gripping his little hands. "No," he said firmly, his voice shaking despite himself. "You did nothing wrong. Ever." The boy finally looked at him, eyes wide and uncertain. "Then why did she want me sick?" he whispered. The question cut deeper than any accusation. The billionaire pulled him into a tight embrace, holding him as if letting go might make everything fall apart. "Because she was broken," he said quietly. "Not because of you." The boy nodded slowly, resting his head against his father's chest. "The waitress was brave," he said after a moment. "She didn't care if people shouted." The billionaire closed his eyes, guilt flooding through him. "She saved your life," he replied, "and I will never forget that." Outside the room, the waitress sat on a plastic chair, shoulders slumped, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her uniform was wrinkled and stained with dry juice. She stared at the floor, replaying the moment over and over in her mind. The slap, the scream, the looks of hatred. When she looked up, The billionaire was standing in front of her. She scrambled to her feet. "Sir, I'm so sorry for the scene," she said quickly. "I didn't mean—" He raised a hand, stopping her. "You don't owe me an apology," he said. His voice was low, heavy with emotion. "You owe me nothing." She blinked, confused. "You saved my son," he continued. "If you had hesitated for even 1 second—" His voice broke, and he turned away briefly before facing her again. "Why?" he asked. The waitress swallowed hard. "My brother," she said softly. "He had a peanut allergy. The school didn't believe us. They said we were exaggerating." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I watched him die in an ambulance." The billionaire felt his knees weaken. "When I saw that bottle," she continued, "I didn't see your table. I saw him." Silence stretched between them. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. 2 police officers escorted the fiancée past them in handcuffs. Her hair was disheveled now, makeup streaked, composure completely gone. She screamed as cameras flashed from the end of the corridor. "You ruined me!" she shouted at the waitress. The boy peeked out from the hospital room, eyes wide. The billionaire stepped forward instantly, positioning himself between his son and the woman. "No," he said coldly. "You ruined yourself." The officers led her away, her screams fading down the hall. The waitress trembled, hugging herself. The billionaire turned back to her. "You won't lose your job," he said firmly. "You won't lose your future. I promise." She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands as years of fear and silence poured out. Inside the room, the boy watched, understanding in his own way that one scream, one brave moment, had changed all their lives forever. By the next morning, the story had escaped the hospital walls and exploded across the world. Phones buzzed non-stop. News alerts stacked on top of each other. "Waitress saves billionaire son from poisoning," one headline read. Another screamed, "Security footage exposes fiancé's shocking crime." Outside the hospital, reporters crowded the entrance, microphones raised, cameras rolling. The billionaire stood before them, his son safely behind him, hand resting on the boy's shoulder. "This woman saved my child's life," he said clearly, pointing toward the waitress standing just behind him. "She acted without hesitation, without thinking about consequences. Because of her, my son is alive today." The boy nodded shyly. "She's my hero," he said into the microphones. The waitress covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes as millions of strangers heard her story for the first time. Support poured in faster than she could understand. Messages from parents, teachers, doctors, even strangers who had lost children to allergies. "Thank you for being brave. I wish someone had done that for my son." Donations appeared in her account after the billionaire shared her story publicly. But not everyone was kind. Online comments called her a liar, a setup, an actress chasing money. She sat alone in her small apartment that night, phone glowing in her hand, heart sinking as cruel words stacked endlessly on the screen. She staged it. Poor girl wanted fame. Her hands shook as doubt crept in. Did I do the right thing? The question haunted her until her phone buzzed again. Private message appeared. It was from the billionaire. "You did the right thing. Never question that. My son is alive because of you." She let out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding and pressed the phone to her chest, grounding herself in the truth. Meanwhile, across the city, the fiancée sat in a holding cell, staring at the floor as her world collapsed. Her name was everywhere now, but not in the way she imagined. No more luxury, no more future plans. Just consequences. Back at the hospital, the boy slept peacefully for the first time since the restaurant, his breathing steady. The billionaire watched him from the doorway, knowing one simple act of courage had saved everything he loved. He turned to the waitress and said quietly, "The world knows now, but I want you to know, no matter what anyone says, you are family to us." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks, realizing that sometimes the loudest scream in the room becomes the strongest voice in the world. If the story moved you like the video right now, Comment below what would you have done in her place. And subscribe for more powerful stories that prove one brave moment can change everything. The courtroom was silent in a way the restaurant never was. No music, no chatter, just the sharp echo of shoes on polished floors and the weight of eyes watching every movement. The waitress sat stiffly on the wooden bench, hands folded tightly in her lap, heart pounding as if it wanted to escape her chest. Across the room, the fiancée sat beside her lawyers, shoulders tense, jaw clenched, no trace of the polished woman she once was. The billionaire sat behind his son, one arm wrapped protectively around him. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The air felt heavy, thick with truth that could no longer be hidden. "Play the footage," the prosecutor said calmly. The screen lit up again. The vial, the pour, the slap, the scream. The room absorbed it in stunned silence. This time no one laughed. No one whispered. The truth needed no explanation. The fiancé's lawyer stood, voice shaking. "She never intended to kill the child," he argued. "She only meant to cause mild illness." The judge's eyes hardened. "Intent does not erase risk," he replied sharply. "Nor does jealousy excuse endangering a child." The boy shifted in his seat, clutching his father's sleeve as the fiancée finally broke down, sobbing openly. "I didn't think it would go that far," she cried. The judge leaned forward. "That is the problem," he said coldly. "You thought of yourself, not the child." The courtroom held its breath as the sentence was read. Attempted murder, endangerment of a minor, multiple counts. The words landed like thunder. Handcuffs clicked shut, loud and final. The fiancée screamed as officers led her away, but no one moved to comfort her. Justice had spoken, and it did not blink. Outside the courthouse, sunlight felt strange after the darkness inside. Reporters waited, but the billionaire waved them away. He turned to the waitress instead. "It's over," he said quietly. She nodded, though her hands still trembled. "I was so scared," she admitted. "But I'd do it again." He smiled sadly. "That's what makes you extraordinary." The boy stepped forward and hugged her tightly. "You're really brave," he said. She laughed through tears, hugging him back, realizing that justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about protection. And today, a child was safe because someone refused to stay silent. Life didn't return to normal after the trial, it moved forward differently. The billionaire kept his promise. He set up an allergy awareness foundation in the name of the waitress's brother, funding training programs for schools, restaurants, and hospitals. "No child should die because someone didn't listen," he said at the launch. The waitress stood beside him, still uncomfortable with attention, but proud. She never imagined her pain could protect others. When he offered her a full scholarship to study nursing, she froze. "I don't know if I'm smart enough," she whispered. He smiled gently. "You were smart enough to save a life." That was all she needed to hear. She accepted, hands shaking, heart full. The boy visited her often before she started school. Sometimes they talked about normal things, cartoons, dogs, his favorite food. Other times he asked quiet questions. "Do you still get scared?" he asked once. She nodded. "Yes, but I do the right thing anyway." He thought about that carefully. "I want to be like that," he said. The billionaire watched from across the room, knowing his son had learned something no amount of money could ever teach. Courage wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. It was simply choosing to act when it mattered most. As the waitress packed for her first day of classes, she paused, staring at her reflection. She was still the same person but stronger now. She smiled softly, thinking of that slap, that scream, that moment the world tried to silence her. It hadn't. It had listened. And because of that, her life and many others were forever changed. Years later, the restaurant still stood, polished and expensive, but the memory of that night lingered like a quiet echo. The boy was taller now, his voice deeper, his confidence steady. He stood beside his father at a charity event, adjusting his tie nervously. "Do you think she'll come?" he asked. The billionaire smiled. "She never misses this one." When the doors opened, the room softened. The former waitress walked in, not in uniform, but in a simple dress, calm and self-assured. She caught the boy's eye and smiled. He grinned back, a silent thank you passing between them. They didn't need words anymore. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped onto the stage and paused, scanning the crowd. "I didn't plan to be brave," she said honestly. "I was scared. I was shaking. But I remembered what silence cost me once." The room listened, every breath held. "Sometimes doing the right thing means people will hate you first," she continued. "But if it saves even one life, it's worth it." Applause filled the hall, not loud, but deep and sincere. The boy clapped the hardest, eyes shining. The billionaire placed a hand on his shoulder, pride swelling in his chest. Later that night, as the crowd thinned, the boy looked up and asked, "Do you still hear the scream?" She nodded slowly. "Every day," she said. "But now it reminds me that courage works." He smiled. That scream had saved his life and built a future. One moment, one choice, one voice that refused to stay silent. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and comment your favorite moment because your support keeps the next episode coming.